Oh, hi there, everybody, and welcome to the video. Whether you're here by sheer coincidence or on purpose, I appreciate your consideration in watching this video. I'm Dusty Socks, and I'm an abridger. So this video will serve as sort of just a discussion point, maybe in episode 0 or something, or maybe this random one-off type discussion that I'm providing. As you can see, it's not going to be completely edited. In fact, it's going to be mostly unedited. It's mostly just going to provide my icon and this audio laid in to support the icon. But anyway, maybe in the future this might be a little better edited if I decide to continue this conversation piece on the archive channel. But anyway, welcome. I'm here to discuss the notion of is abridging dying? Now, this might be very interesting to some of you who are not affiliated with the abridging community, but a common take within certain groups, certain circles of people related to the abridging community or directly affiliated with them will comment on a few things. They will say whether or not you consider the idea of the larger abridging groups that you recognize, like Schmuck Squad, Joyride Entertainment, Numbskulls, the usual folk that produce content on a regular basis. You will see that by their example, no, abridging is not dying. It's very well alive, but it is currently, in the phase of a bit of stagnation due to the loss of Team 4-Star and Purple Eyes. But regardless of that, abridging is all well and good. Then you will see a bunch of other people who will say the idea that abridging is not fine, it is not dead, but it is dying, simply because of the fact that you will see a number of people who are currently not abridging. That will be former people who had previously posted around the time of TIBA or afterwards, and they are not currently producing as much videos as they used to. I am an example of this problem, and while I can see their counterpoint, I can see their point to this. My counterpoint is that they remain highly negligent of the other groups that are constantly producing content, whether it be good, bad, or otherwise. That's the point that I want to kind of discuss about whether or not abridging is dying or otherwise. And I'd like to say that no, abridging is not dying. I'd like to stick with the idea that lots of current modern abridgers who have been constantly producing videos like Something Witty, like Project Mouthwatch, like Schmuck Squad, they're consistently producing videos at a decent rate with good quality that suffices for their audience. Whether or not that's considered good or not is up to you to determine, but I would say for that matter, objectively speaking, it's good because of the amount of audience it drags in. However, it is stagnant. That's what I will provide. It is stagnant because later on down the line, you will see these groups start to transition, as a lot of notable abridgers, or at least members of the abridging groups, have noted that they want to slowly step out of the limelight of abridging. For example, Yaro Shian has made a number of videos discussing the concept of wanting to create other content outside of abridging that garners the same viewership as his abridgments. This is an especially prevalent issue amongst people who want to transition out of abridging but have started on abridging. It's very difficult to get out of that unless you have already established a personality on your own. The other point I want to discuss about it being stagnant is, while this is happening, you have a very consistent issue, probably the most important issue at this point in time, and I will say that the issue is that new abridgers or abridgers that are trying to get into the community with their first series or episodes are not producing their content. Now, what I mean by this is that the new people who are entering ABLO, which is Abridgers Lounge for the people that don't know, which is a sort of Abridgers hub for your different kinds of resources, different kinds of recruiting pages to help get you started with abridging. Different resources, different like information, things that can help you out, people with experience that can help you out, stuff like that. What I was discussing was that newer abridgers who are just entering ABLO for the first time are suggesting that they want to create a parody of theirs. That's great. The problem is when they don't actually produce their first parody or consistently produce new parodies right out the woodwork. And I think this is the number one issue pertaining to the idea of is abridging dying. And I think this has to do with the fact that over the course of many years that abridging has kind of developed, you've seen a number of people kind of progress with the standard of abridging. You go with Lo Karibo, who started it all, providing a new kind of script to the original series. Then you have Purple Eyes with Lip Flaps. You have, out of nowhere, a huge leap from Kaiser Neko, who just demolishes everyone else's editing quality and raises the bar of how you have to kind of go about editing. And this, along with other people like Something Witty, raising the stakes for writing purposes, has raised the entry level for abridging at such a high peak that the new abridgers feel somewhat intimidated and that they feel like they need to reach that level or that peak to the point where if they can't get there, then they have to start over again, and they feel kind of disappointed and feel like they're in a cycle. There are a number of people that have been in this. In fact, I know a few of my friends who are in the process of making their first abridgment but have not done so as of yet. The other issue regarding this is some time ago there's a especially prevalent problem of gatekeeping. Yes, I know it seems rather silly that a very niche corner of a very niche section, being anime, of a very niche section of the internet is getting gatekeeping, but just as any community gets gatekeeping, so will abridging. And this falls under the idea that people want to accept abridgments as like good or bad. That's essentially what like most people who are abridgers will look at an abridged video and be like, they'll observe it as like, is it good? Is it bad? Why is it good? Why is it bad? And that's essentially the standard. Like, I might be misrepresenting this a little bit, but of course I am just rambling, so feel free to discuss that point if you'd like in the comments. But the point that I'd like to make is that a lot of the time, if you weren't at a certain level because of the standard, you'd fall under it, and most people would unabashedly critique the hell out of your script or out of your video, and they would set you as maybe below what they're expecting and not expecting much out of you. And that's a very interesting and yet silly perspective to take, especially nowadays. I totally understand that perspective, though. I am guilty of this as well. There was one instance, there was this one abridger who produced a JoJo Part 1 parody. I will not go ahead and say his name out of respect, or her name. I've totally revealed that it is a guy, but don't worry about it. But when he produced that parody and posted it on the critique channel in Ablo, there were several abridgers who have already produced their own parodies or have had experience in making decent parodies, commenting and critiquing on all sorts of problems. And ultimately, I feel as though that had an effect on him to the point where he had ultimately decided to dissociate from the community and start doing his own thing. Now, this is not so much a problem nowadays, but I feel like you can still assuredly have this problem come up every now and then. There was another recent event, not recent, but notable one, where a scriptwriter who had assumed that they were capable of being funny or comedic, having have their figurative soul crush when they were told that their script is not funny enough or that it's not good enough, to the point where he sort of just stopped wanting to produce that video. And because of that instance and of several other instances happening afterwards, I've become a major proponent for, well, I wouldn't say a major proponent, but I've become such a proponent for the idea of not having critiques for your first script or abridged video. Maybe the first abridged video at that point when you've actually produced the video, but certainly not the script. I think that having the script critiqued is a bad idea simply for a few reasons. One of them is that a script is just a piece of paper. A script can be left to the interpretation of many, depending on how you would read a certain line. There are several examples of this, but one that I like to cite commonly is the phrase, "I didn't say she stole my money." If you change the emphasis on any word, if you put the emphasis on any single word, it sort of changes the meaning throughout the line. Like, I didn't say she stole my money, or I didn't say she stole my money, or I didn't say she stole my money. Like, you kind of get the point. It puts a different meaning behind each of those iterations of the same line, depending on which word you try to emphasize in this case. Same thing with the scripting in abridging, or just in any kind of scripting in general. It's always dependent on how the creator of the script, or the script writer, intends to interpret those lines that he or she wrote down. That's why I think that it's not a good idea to have the script, the critique, go for the first script. The other thing is that if you are given a critique, and you don't know how to go about adjusting it, or you've gone about those adjustments but feel like you can improve on that, you get sort of stuck in this loop where you're constantly trying to improve, and at some point you'll just start to stagnate and just feel like flustered about how to fix every single problem, to the point where your video doesn't even get produced. And that's a huge problem. That causes the whole problem of, oh, abridging is dying. Well, shit, what do I do? So those are my comments on how newer bridges are being stifled, is either through elitism or just the idea, or previous elitism. Not so much the case nowadays, but you can certainly still see issues like that pop up. It's either elitism or the standard intimidating so many people. And to add to kind of go further onto that previous point of people being intimidated by the standard, I now lead to a counterpoint of two certain things to help mitigate that issue. One is you should not associate with a community right off the bat when you're producing your first script. When you surround yourself with people who have already abridged or are in the process of abridging, you get this mentality that you should match their quality because you're surrounded by people that you commonly talk to or commonly surround yourself with, and it kind of gives you the idea that, oh, if they're doing that, I should do that as well. But as a first-time abridger, you'll almost never reach that quality, and you should never aim to do so. And trying to get there leads to that same loop that I was talking about, how you would get stuck in a loop of trying to constantly improve yourself, but finding yourself unsatisfied with your video to the point where you just kind of get flustered and ultimately stop working on it for time on end. The other thing I would suggest is to focus specifically on your writing and just put in the minimum effort of editing as much as possible. I think that editing nowadays has become such a focused aspect of abridging, to the point where if you're not a good abridger, you will be shunned, or you will be looked away from, or just seen as obscure. And I think that's totally ludicrous. I think that editing is a good aspect of immersing your audience in your writing, but I feel like you really need to focus on your writing more than anything. And if your writing holds up, the editing will, if it's passable or minimum at best to serve the purpose of your writing, I think it will work out in the long run. You'll see people like Anthony Wong, who was previously featured on Bridge Rewind, which was a series of videos posted quite some time ago to promote newer abridgers or people who would post content within the community. You would see Anthony Wong produce Mac Abridged, who had no intention of being noticed, just produced it for his high school project. And I think that people like him, who mostly just focused on his writing and not necessarily any of the editing as much as like other people would, happened to shine out in this instance, and it was a very nice discovery, despite the fact that I don't think Anthony Wong is producing any more content like that. You'll see other people, especially when Tiba was a thing, you'll see a lot of people who came out of the woodwork producing good content. And it's a shame that most people don't do that anymore due to lack of time or not following along with the bridging community as much as possible. And I can definitely see their perspective of either case. I would, for my instance, when I first started to abridge, I was not hindered by the fact that I should meet the standards of other people. I was always on the idea of, I think this should I just want to create an abridged parody and see how it holds up. And I did that. And I constantly wanted to improve on my quality, so I had set a goal for myself every time. And I think people should start doing one of those two things that I suggest. Either just simply focusing on the writing when you're a new abridger and not putting as much effort as you think you should while editing, or just disassociating yourself from the community. But I think the main thing that combines the two together is the fact that abridging should not be done to garner attention, because if you wanted to garner attention, you could just post a reaction video or a TikTok or something, or post a viral meme, and I think you would garner lots of attention by that. But if you wanted to abridging and become the next Team 4-star, you're out of luck, buddy. You're not gonna get that ability to do that right off the bat. Team 4-star happened to be a very specific moment in a very specific circumstance where everything lined up for them to start kind of just skyrocketing and becoming the most important group in abridging history. And I think what is important to note, even out of Team 4-star first coming into the scene as their own group, is that you have to understand that they wanted to do it because they wanted to abridge, not because they wanted to get popular or anything, but that because they wanted to explore a YouTube content creating medium that they could put their hands on, mess around with, and ultimately have fun. So I think at the end of the day, newer bridgers should not focus on meeting a certain standard of quality or wanting to do something because they want to get popular. I think they should want to do something because they want to do it and they want to have fun with it. And I think a lot of newer bridgers are not doing that. They're trying to meet a standard that they can't, and they get frustrated and disappointed. And you see a lot of newer bridgers not doing that. And that's what I think is causing the community to grow stagnant. Not because the current abridgers aren't doing anything. Mind you, there are a lot that aren't doing anything, but there's enough content to go around where I think the abridging community will last quite a bit longer. But if those groups die out, then you have nothing to back yourselves up on. At that point, the new abridgers who are supposed to be riding this new generation of a wave will not do so because they're not producing content. And that's my main point of this discussion of is abridging dying. I think that overall, abridging is stagnant because newer bridgers aren't producing content, and that they should in order to keep the community a little healthier. But yeah, that's all I had to say about that. Let me know in the comments what you think about this discussion point. Feel free to go upon anything I discussed in here. I know this is a 20 plus minute video. I apologize for kind of just rambling at points, kind of digressing here and there. That's sort of how my train of thought goes. But I do appreciate you if you have stuck around for this long. Anyway, please feel free to leave the comments about what you thought. Let me know what you think in general about the abridging community itself. I might produce another video, but that's going to be it for me. This has been Dusty Socks, and I'm signing out. Later. Oh.